Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well and having a good time. I've got some exciting news for you. I've just launched a brand new channel called Crown Corner that I will be narrating stories on it daily myself. Let's just say that if you love hearing about unbelievable entitled people and those unforgettable Karens, you're going to love what's in store on the new channel. So here is what I need from you, my good friends. Head over to the new channel, you'll find a link in the description below, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss out on any of our wild stories. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to see you there. Let's keep the stories rolling. Thank you so much for being part of this journey with me. And now, let's dive into our stories. This happened about 5 to 6 weeks ago, but I just heard the story firsthand yesterday. I was told the story secondhand weeks ago, but the guy telling the story admitted he didn't see some of it and heard even less. A fellow restaurant owner in my area was doing takeout/delivery only during the pandemic. When restaurants in our state were told we could open up for dine-in at 25%, he decided, as did I and many others, to not open it as it's just not worth it. All orders at his place, be it a delivery service or customer picking up a takeout order, was done outside. Nobody except employees were allowed inside. Orders were taken outside to the parking lots by an employee. This happened a few days after the 25% was announced. Enter Karen and her not Karen friend. They drive up and get out of the car. Employee is delivering a takeout order and sees Karen and her friend. Tells him the restaurant is not open for dine-in. Karen is not happy. Proceeds to scream how sick and tired she is of eating takeout and they will serve her and her friend now. The employee tells her that this is not going to happen, and Karen kicks him in the leg. The employee manages to still get in front of her so she can get in the door. Karen doubles down and stomps on his foot. The owner, who witnessed the initial kick and subsequent stomp, tells an employee to call 911 while he runs out to help the employee. Karen, not knowing the police are already being called, screams to her friend to call the police. Her friend has done nothing. She's frozen in place in the middle of the parking lot, not believing what she's witnessing from Karen. Karen is still trying to get in the door but can't, as the employee she assaulted has fallen in front of the door. This would have been a good time for Karen and her friend to leave. The cop shows up and Karen thinks he is there to order the owner to let her and her friend eat in. Oh, how delusional, Karen. The cop tells her he's there for a reported assault. The cop calls for an ambulance as a second cop shows up. Karen starts screaming that the employee is faking his injury as the third cop rolls up. She screams that she was the one assaulted by everyone within a quarter-mile radius. Typical Karen nonsense. The ambulance shows up and starts treating the employee. The owner invites one of the officers inside. Meanwhile, outside, Karen demands to leave. Nope, not happening. She has to stay while this is being investigated. The owner has cameras inside and outside. Karen's tirade is all on camera, including the person who was getting his food delivered by the employee. He had his camera rolling and got audio of Karen in all her glory. When told she could not leave and was going to be arrested, Karen reacted by screaming and pinching the cop on the arm so hard he had a bruise. Oh, her friend never moved during all of this. The owner said her eyes looked like tennis balls bugging out of her head. She was allowed to leave as she did nothing wrong. The employee had 2 broken toes. Yep, raging Karen stomped that hard. Karen was handcuffed, put in a police car and taken to jail, screaming all the way how she would have everyone's badge. Again, typical Karen nonsense. All of this because she was sick and tired of eating takeout. One of the cops came by the restaurant the next day to ask about the employee. He told the owner how in the last months or so there was an uptick in people getting arrested, banned from businesses, trespass orders who have never been in trouble with the law. It was in the age group of approximately 55 to 70 years old. Karen, 58 years old, never been arrested. No problems at all. Well/served some time in jail, as well as being sued by the employee. The reasoning? They are frustrated over this virus thing. Late last year, I started fostering a girl, and yeah, things went great. We talked and she really wants me to adopt her personally. I think that's great, and we have been going through the process of an adoption. But here is where things get sticky. Of course, I talked to her before posting this, and yeah, here goes. She has been bouncing around the foster system for the last 7 years. Her mother is doing a long stint in jail, drugs, weapons, charges, attempted murder's assault. And the woman won't be up for any sort of parole until my foster is in her mid-20s. But because she still has parental rights, the adoption process has hit a standstill. She has not once written a letter, not a single call, nothing in truth. She basically forgot about the kid, and it breaks my heart. And that's why I want to fully adopt her, so she knows she has a family. We're going to call my foster child Kate. So Kate took the initiative to contact her biological mom and tried to tell her what she wanted. And she told her to bring me to the prison for a visit to discuss it and do the paperwork. We took the 5-hour drive to the correctional facility where the woman is held and went through the visitation process. But here's the sad part. The woman didn't care about talking to her kid. Not one bit. All she said to her, "So, how much are you going to pay me?" The absolutely horrible person wants me to fill her prison store account to the maximum. It's roughly $10,000 is a max. Now, it's not about the money for me, I don't care about the money. It's more about the principle. Like, who tries to sell their kid like that? She's your flesh and blood. Since she's been with me, the kid has done a complete turnaround. She has dreams for the future. She's 13 and she wants to go to university, and I have made sure she has had opportunities that she would never have had. I got her enrolled in one of the best private schools in province. There is 2 teachers per class with a max class size of 10 students. Update. I made a post a few days ago about my hopefully soon-to-be adopted daughter Kate. How her biological mom is doing a long stint in a correctional facility and has not been in contact with her for about 6 years, and basically disowned her when she went in. She tried to get me to fill her jail account with $10,000, the legal max to sign away her parental rights. So I went the day after I posted and talked to the Children's Aid Society, and as expected, they were no help. They just suggested that they should just move Kate to a different home again. She's been moved around every few months since she was 7. It's ridiculous. I found my sister and mom a family lawyer a while back to go after my dad for paid child support, and she won, and my sister got a $60,000 payout. I called him and he took me on. He was so disgusted at the situation, he was like, "No, I am taking this case on pro bono." Let's just say I love this man so much for what he has done in 2 short days. He already contacted the prison system and is going through the process of getting all the recordings that were made of us in the meeting room. He went on to contact the biological mom, and her province provided legal representation. He had a short conversation with her and her representative and explained what he's going to have to do and whatnot. Well, he has a meeting in person with her and her representative on Thursday to sign the parental rights paperwork just like that. He's also going to handle the adoption process for me because, in his words, dealing with the Children's Aid Societies is a pain. They are cruel and a nightmare. He has set up an appointment with the courts and said that by this time next month, Kate will be legally adopted. He has enough proof that her being a ward of Children's Aid Societies is harmful for her, and it will be like in and out. So basically, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment 2 months ago with S and J. Now S is on a lease, J is S's friend and isn't on a lease. I pay 50%, S pays 25%, and J pays 25% of rent. Not my ideal situation, but I was desperate for roommates at the time. Fast forward 2 months, they are enormous slops who never do anything, so I clean up after them all the time. I vacuum the living room, mop the kitchen, do dishes, and so on. I buy most of the shared groceries and household items like toilet paper, which the 2 of them plow through really quickly. S has a cat in the apartment which is unauthorized, and regularly has an authorized dog here too. The rent is paid late and utilities on a last possible day. Also, they smoke copious amounts of weed, and while I don't care, I asked them to be respectful enough to air out the apartment and keep the smoke out of my room. Now last week crap goes south. SNJ overheard me whining about having to clean up after them, and after ignoring me for a few days, sent me a long text about how rude they considered that and so on. So I laid out everything that was bothering me, and told them that if they don't want to live with me, I'll gladly release them from the lease, repay the deposit, and they can go. This causes them to freak out and they tell me, it's 2 against 1. We will force you to move. Oh hell no. I blocked him on all forms of social media and means of communication. The next day, I went down to the apartment managers and reported the 2 unauthorized pets and the unauthorized occupant. Written notices were given. SNJ threw them straight into the trash. I returned from a 4-day stay at my dad's and go straight to report the unauthorized occupant J. I returned from a 4-day stay at my dad's and go straight to report the unauthorized occupant J, who has already once been asked to leave, and both unauthorized pets, which were supposed to be gone by now. Well, at this point, S and J are getting pissed off. J screams obscenities at me anytime I enter or leave my bedroom. Twice she spent a half-hour period pounding on my door and the walls of my room. She taunted me through the door trying to get me to open up. All of this is being quietly recorded on my phone while I still haven't said a word. So yesterday I went back down to the office to finish securing my new apartment and to report more violations. When I came home, the chain lock was locked, so I had no way to get in. This is what I have been waiting for. Jay taunts me again on video and then slaps my hat off my head, hitting me square in the forehead with the back of her hand. I call the cops, rat S and J out for being druggies, get all their paraphernalia confiscated, and get a police report for battery. Come Monday, I'll be on my way to the prosecutor's office to press charges. The apartment managers will also be getting a copy of this report. Also, tomorrow is the last day to pay rent before it's late. S&J disappeared early this morning. If they don't pay rent, I'm going to get them on the abandonment clause. Finally get them evicted and have the locks changed. All before I move out tomorrow. I will never allow myself to be forced out of my apartment without calling in the entire cavalry. I regretfully got an apartment with what is, in my opinion, the worst landlord ever. This man has the audacity to call himself a good person in court. Let me fill you in. I got an apartment shortly after being released from prison. Happy that someone is going to give me a chance to improve my life. This was clearly not the case. All was well for the first few months, then winter hit and the heat went out. It took 3 days to get him to even answer his phone. By that time, his voicemail was full of complaints from his freezing cold tenants. He told me the law gave him reasonable time to fix it. We went 2 more weeks with no heat, using our stoves and camping in the kitchen in our respective apartments. When he got his electricity bill, he attempted to raise the rent on the apartment. Obviously, he was not allowed by the city, so he refused to pay his electricity bill, thus denying all of us heat at all. And this is where my OCD kicked in and I went for research mode. I studied every law in regards to federal, state, and city landlord-tenant laws and rights. I found so many violations it was no longer funny but scary. I studied building code. I studied the condition of all of his apartments. This was easier due to the fact that I was either friends with his tenants or had gone there to repair damages caused by frozen pipes and electrical outlets failing due to shoddy wiring and so forth. The landlord had pissed off all of his tenants. Every last one was pissed to the point where they wanted to testify against him in court, but couldn't due to the financial hardships the living conditions we were in had been causing. I formulated a plan to get him to repair the buildings he owned, but he had his own plan. January 2nd at 2 a.m. I was awoken by the smoke detectors in the whole building going off. I quickly ran to the back hall because no smoke was in my apartment yet, but I was on the top floor, and I opened the door and was greeted by a thick wall of smoke. I quickly ran downstairs after shouting for my girlfriend at the time to get out of the house quickly. I pounded on every door and screamed fire. I got as many people as possible to evacuate, but the floor was afire, no one was answering, and to my knowledge, contained children. So I panicked. At this point, the fire department was there and began breaking in doors. I evacuated. After the fire was out and the investigation had started, I witnessed the landlord give the tenant of that apartment's sister an envelope containing an undisclosed amount of cash, which was visible to anyone nearby. 2 weeks later, the results were released. Arson. The tenant had used hairspray to start the fire and hid the evidence in a hole she punched into the wall. The very person who had been given money by the landlord. Ironically, she was the only tenant who had paid rent in the whole building because she had started moving in 2 days prior. I had not known she was now a tenant and her sister and kids had moved out the day before. I looked at him and told him I know what he had done, and I was not going to rest until he lost all his buildings. I then began asking his tenants for their stories about their interaction with the landlord. This is where things got real. He had been accused of everything from ripping off employees, theft, grand theft auto, bank fraud, and so much more. I formulated a new plan. I sucked up to him and made it known I'm a computer tech. The landlord had a few broken computers and some printer and network issues. I was in. We worked a deal on payment for back rent. I knew he was not good for his word, but it was all part of the plan. Once I got his passwords and logins, I copied his entire hard disk drive to my portable one. I copied all emails in his business account and printed his financial records on my Wi-Fi printer, which was next door. After I fixed his computers and network, I then went home to review my newfound evidence. It was enough, more than enough. I contacted code enforcement with all of the violations of code for every building, including the illegal electrical installation in his new office without permit or even an electrician. He was immediately investigated. That night, I found a 7-day notice to quit on my door. My roommate was worried, but I filled him in on a plan. Remember, I studied all those laws and rights. Well, we got to court and I opened with Your Honor, I have proof of a clear violation of the Warranty of Habitability Act. The eviction was thrown out and he was forced to repair my apartment with me, still in it, immediately. The next month I was given another eviction notice. Still, he's losing money due to the fact that I was teaching his tenants landlord-tenant rights and the laws associated with it. The jerk kept losing his court dates and kept being told to fix stuff and was continuously fined by the courts and the code enforcement. He was sinking fast. Back to that fire, the woman living there was arrested for arson and charged with 2 counts due to the accidental electrical fire on New Year's Day that turned out to be ruled intentionally. So the hairspray was in reality a Tim too. He was under investigation for conspiracy to arson and other charges. But I wasn't done yet. We went to court again for my non-payment of rent. I won again based on the Landlord's Retaliation Act because I had contacted code enforcement and could prove this blatant retaliation, and the judge didn't even listen to him. Needless to say, spending the winter without heat took a toll on us tenants. We bought electric heaters and informed the power company that the landlord had shut off all the power to all his buildings and was requiring the tenants to pay for their own power. Well, apparently his illegal wiring caught up to him. He had wired apartments to run off each other, and the common areas were now attached to wiring in every apartment. This put the landlord in a rough position as local law says it's the landlord's responsibility to supply power to all common areas. This means his shoddy workmanship and illegal wiring prevents him from legally disconnecting the power. The power company turned on all the power and locked his ability to shut it off until the wiring of common areas was repaired and separated from the apartments. This would cost thousands. Thousands we knew he didn't have. The landlord was panicking, he kept losing in court, people were legally withholding rent and he couldn't shut off services, and the fines were debilitating. He kept blaming his tenants and refused to repair things. One by one the buildings were condemned and the landlord was required to pay for relocation of his tenants by law. Well, he didn't. He couldn't. He was arrested for attempting to sell 3 buildings the city confiscated from him, and for selling one that was condemned. The landlord got what he deserved. He lost every building he owned, got charged with all kinds of fraud, and was investigated for other crimes I'm still unaware of. But I wasn't done. He caused a lot of suffering. I gave his financial records to the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, with all the internal memos and everything I got from his computers. Also, I provided the local authorities and code enforcement with the same things. The landlord was so screwed. I have since gotten a new apartment and everything he owned has been taken by the city, state, and IRS. I have not seen the landlord in 3 years and all of his properties have been bought by someone new, repaired, and have all new tenants who are happy with their new landlords. The old tenants got better places with decent landlords. And what about our wonderful entitled landlord? Well, he's serving multiple sentences for the crimes he has committed and is already not getting out anytime soon. Yet, the investigations are not done and the charges keep coming. The landlord is somewhere in some prison, regretting meeting this tenant. The moral? Don't be entitled unless you want to meet the moral enforcer.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.